Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to let you know that starting on July 10th and continuing throughout the summer, I am going to be hosting a series of pod chats in my Facebook group. I'm going to be talking to podcast hosts about their podcast journey, why they started, why they continue, the troubles and tribulations along the way, the brilliant ahas that they've had, guests, all of the good stuff. We're going to be talking about it all in my Facebook group, Start a Podcast UK. Come over and join the group at facebook.com/groups/Start a Podcast UK. Come and join the conversation. I hope to see you there. You're listening to the Mindset and Action Podcast, the place to be to grow and streamline your business. I'm your host, Donna Ede. Let's jump into the show. A lot of people listen to podcasts because they want to learn something and be entertained along the way. Alex Blumberg. Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. So happy to have you here today with me because we're talking about podcasts, because you know I love podcasting. So today we're talking about why you should listen to podcasts. And obviously, you know you should listen to podcasts because you're listening to me right now. But if you are sort of sitting there thinking about potentially starting a podcast, but you're not sure about the listenership side of it, this is a good one to listen to. So I'm going to be talking about some of the podcasts that I love to listen to and why. And I'm going to also be talking about why podcasting is just a great tool in your business. So first of all, I started listening to podcasts in about 2014, and it was Amy Porterfield's podcast that I started listening to, the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. And I exclusively listened to that podcast for probably 3 or 4 years. I didn't even know that other podcasts really existed. And of course, there were lots of podcasts out there at that point, which was like 2018, but really big in America, not so understood here. So I was probably an early adopter to the listenership side of things when it came to podcasting. And, you know, because it was based in America at the time, and not so known here, I thought you needed to have like a radio studio to be able to do a podcast. Soon learned that that's not the case. And the rest, as they say, is history. But I started listening to Amy, and I found her because I am a follower of Jasmine Star, and she was going on the podcast. So she talked about it on her social media that she was going to be on this podcast. I was like, oh, I want to listen to that. And that was quite early on. But podcasting is usually listened to for a number of reasons. But one of the main 2 reasons, I suppose, is education and entertainment. So the 2 E's. So people want to learn something or they want to be entertained. And that tends to be the kind of 2 sides to the podcasting genre, as it were. So when we look at the education side of things, which is what this podcast falls more into, and potentially if you were looking at doing a podcast, is what it would fall into for you. It's educating, it's teaching the listener something, but it's also offering them ideas that they can take away and implement in a different way. So not only are they learning something that could be completely new to them, the great thing I love about listening to podcasts is that you can listen to somebody's podcast who's in a completely different genre to you, because like completely different area, and what they say might spark an idea that you can turn to your industry, to your niche, and find a way of making it work for you. And so those kind of collaborative ideas can come about from podcast listenership, which I really love. And then also just having that solidarity. So knowing that somebody else is going through what you're going through, or understands the things that you struggle with, or has the same highs, the same lows, things like that. Just knowing that there are people out there that are going through what you're going through and understand the path that you're on is really powerful. It gives you that sense of connection. And I've talked about this before, how podcast hosts and their listeners, there is that kind of special bond because of the intimacy that podcasting is with how it's listened to. So the listener, you as the listener, are going to gain that kind of comfort from the podcast host that, oh, it's okay that I'm going through this because they're going through it too, or it's okay that I felt this way about that because they felt that too. So you kind of get that, like I say, that solidarity in business with the podcast host and the community as a whole. So if there is a Facebook group or a way that podcast community gets together, then you can find people in there that really sort of understand who you are. And it's a great way to kind of build a tribe of people that have got those similar thoughts and feelings, because like attracts like. So it is pretty much guaranteed that if you are a listener of this podcast and you have been listening for, say, 3 or 4 months at least, that we are likely to get on as friends. Because if you can listen to me every week talking on this podcast and get information from it and enjoy it and like it, then you're probably a similar person to me. We probably have a lot of likes in common, so we would get on well, so you're kind of building connections with people and attracting, as the host, attracting people that you would want to work with and would get on with because they enjoy listening to you. So, if it would be no good somebody coming to learn how to podcast from me if they don't enjoy listening to my voice. That's not going to work. They're not going to learn that way. But if you can listen to my voice and say, I like listening to this person, I could learn from this person, then it makes it a much easier yes when it comes to working with the person. So it's a great way of checking people out before you buy from them, becoming a listener of their podcast, because you get to know their personality, you get to know how they work, you get to know what their thoughts and feelings are around certain things, and it just helps you to understand them and see if they're the right fit for you. So it's a great option for sort of trying before you buy, as it were. So moving on to the podcasts that I listen to and why I listen to them. So my number one most listened to podcast at the moment is Emily Hirsch podcast, which I think I've mentioned on the podcast before. I've certainly mentioned it in my newsletter. So if you're not on my newsletter, you can go to donnae.com/podsquad and sign up. And every week I send out a email. It includes links to this podcast episode and the Monday episode that goes out, and then anything else that I want to sort of share with you. But in that, I have told the guys a number of times that I love Emily's podcast. So it's called the Embodied Marketing Podcast. It used to be called the Not for Lazy Marketers podcast, but she's changed her business name and the podcast name in tandem with that to Embodied Marketing. So her podcast is obviously about marketing. She has a marketing agency that deals with Facebook ads, and she works with her clients to get them more visible on Facebook using paid advertising. But she talks a lot about the customer journey. She talks a lot about the mindset of an entrepreneur. She talks a lot about being a wife and a mother and working from home with 20 employees. She talks a lot about how she got started in her business, which was when she was like literally had like a baby in her arms, her first baby, and she was 20 years old, and how she got her business started. So she started at 20 with a baby in her arms on her own, and now she has 20 full-time employees. I think they're all full-time, maybe not, but definitely 20 people that work with her in her business, and she's a mother of 3. And she talks about that journey and how she handles that. So, but she's quite a tough nut. So she's not, I feel like I'm a lot softer in my approach than she is on her podcast. So if you like that kind of, get to the don't BS me, just tell me what to do kind of attitude, you might enjoy her podcast. I really like it. And the reason I listen to it is because I think that marketing is one of my weakest aspects of my business, that I am the most weak at, is the marketing side. So I always listen to her podcast because it gives me ideas, it gives me pointers, it shows me the right direction to go in. I've done her challenges a few times, which have been really, really useful. So if you're looking at starting in paid ads, get on her podcast, get on her email list, and the next time she runs her Facebook challenge, jump on it, because it's really, really good. So I really enjoy her podcast because of that. The second podcast that I listened to a lot is the Far Too Fabulous podcast. Shout out to Catherine and Julie over there. They are obviously clients of mine. They came through my 8-week program, and their podcast launched at the end of that 8-week program back in January. They launched, and I love the podcast. So I wouldn't listen to it if I didn't love it. I would for the first few weeks because they're my clients, because I would want to support them and I would want to make sure that they are getting some listeners in at the beginning to help boost the podcast in the podcasting platforms so that they could have a good start. But if it's not my thing, my vibe, then I wouldn't continue to listen. But I absolutely love these two together. They are so funny. There's such different personalities. You know, Catherine is very high energy and bubbly and, you know, fun and sort of really just wants to take all of the energy and wrap it up and give it to you as a present. And Julie is very much the same in the fact that she is high energy and loves a good laugh, but she comes with the facts and figures behind it. So she's got the facts and figures behind it, and Catherine's got like the energy and the motivation to push you to it. And the way that they work together is just magic, and I absolutely love the podcast. So I listen to this one because my health is one of my number one priorities, and it has become one of my number one priorities over the last few years. Not because I've had anything drastic happen to it, thank the Lord, touch wood. You know, I haven't had anything that has made me sit up and go, oh my gosh, I need to take care of myself. It's just that I'm probably 43 at the time this podcast episode is loading. In fact, I know I will be. So I will, my birthday was on the 26th of June. So I'm 43 years old, and, you know, I'm just getting to that time in my life where I'm thinking, you know, that my parents are getting older, and I'm seeing how their bodies are reacting to their age. And I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm in a better position than they are. What can I do? And just also having struggled with my weight for many, many years, it's something that I have been focused on a lot over, well, like I say, over many, many years. But equally, when the last couple of years ran round, it was one of the things that I started focusing on, and then it kind of morphed from the weight thing into a full body health thing, where I was just like, okay, the weight is one thing, and Julie has a fantastic thing for this. She says weight, the number on the scale is just a description of your relationship with gravity, which I absolutely love. But I started to look at it in more of a rounded experience. So yes, I'm still not happy with my weight. Yes, I don't want to be the weight that I am. I want to lose weight. However, what am I actually putting into my body? Is it good for me? Am I moving enough? Am I drinking enough water? What could I do to help ease things? Why is the weight the way it is when I don't feel like I'm overeating? You know, what is it that I'm not doing that I need to be doing? And is there something like internally, like, is it my gut health? Is that not good? Do I need to do something? So it's all of these things that I started to look into a few years ago, started to kind of make tracks into it, didn't have the money to kind of put into actually doing more than I could on Google. And I tell you what, especially with your health, that's where you really do realize that freebies aren't going to cut it. You really do have to pay for the health stuff. So, you know, sort of hair testing and stool samples and urine samples and blood tests and things like that can really tell you what's going on inside your body. Because what I found was, like, I'm eating, I'm exercising, and the weight's not shifting. So what else could it be? And I got the Aura ring, so another purchase. I didn't pay for it. My other half gifted it to me. Love him. And I've been studying my stress levels. Is that what's causing it? Am I holding on to the weight because my body's in stress too much? And kind of looking at those things. So their podcast really is something that I go to for fun, because they do make me laugh. They have also made me cry. In fact, I think about 3 or 4 of the episodes so far, and they're on about it must be on around episode 25 now, or between 25 and 30, I think, as this podcast is going out. And I've cried in at least 4 episodes so far. So they're a really good pair to listen to. So Julie is a nutritionist. She works with mainly women, I believe, and also with children, in making sure that your nutrition is really supporting your body. She has access to lots of testing that can be done to determine if you are deficient in vitamins and things like that. She really knows her stuff. And then Catherine is your fitness bunny. Like, she is absolutely the Energizer bunny is what I meant to say, not fitness bunny. That's just a little bit too close to Playboy bunny, isn't it? I'm sure she'd put those ears on for you if you like, but you might not get her in the tail. But she is the queen of movement, honestly. She doesn't stop moving. So she swims in the sea. She's run a marathon or half marathon. She did the Brighton Marathon. She is a Pilates queen. She does her own HIIT workouts when she's not teaching Pilates, and she does HIIT Pilates and piloxing, and she is all there for the combination of movement and mental health, and making sure that you are getting those endorphins going and things like that. So the two of them together are a perfect match made in heaven. I love their podcast. So enough of the gushing. Moving over to the next one that is top of my list is the Mel Robbins podcast. So she talks a lot about mental health on her podcast and just life in general. So it's quite a bit of a generalist podcast in that way, but she does tend to focus more on life and sort of that life coaching kind of thing. So what are you doing in your life, in your business? How are you working? How are you connecting with your family? Talking about depression, talking about stress and all of the sleep and all of these kind of things. So she kind of brings it all in and brings in guests, and I love her podcast. So I listen to that one quite a lot. Tanessa Shears, Becoming Limitless. This is a new one for me, and I have been listening to it over the last month or so and really enjoying it. It's another health one. So Tanessa went to university and did biometrics or I don't know, some kind of sciencey type wellness thing. She is a trainer, and she talks a lot about, training and mindset. On her podcast, sleep, nutrition, all of that good stuff. So it's very similar in some ways to Catherine and Julie's, but she is a solo podcaster. She is based in Canada, I believe. Sorry if I got that wrong, Tanessa. She's based in Canada. She has a family out there. She's just created a membership of women, and she sort of provides this podcast as well and interviews guests. So I really love that one. And then my guilty pleasure, but I'm not feeling guilty about it, is Lala Kent's podcast. So Lauren Kent, give them Lala. It's an entertainment podcast for me. That's why I listen to it. It's just like, I love Vanderpump Rules. I watch it, so they talk about it, and I've always loved Lala on the show. So when she came out with the podcast, I've got to listen to it. So I listen to that one quite often. So those are kind of my top 5 listens, and you'll see that actually 3 of those are in kind of the health space. So Catherine, Tanessa and Mel and Julie. Sorry, Julie. So those ones are like the health podcasts. And then I've got one entertainment and one business. It used to be a lot more business. So if I just give you a run through of the other podcasts that I do listen to, or, I have listened to. So the She Means Business podcast, Carrie Green, used to listen to that one a lot. Now, occasionally, depends if the title catches me and I really want to listen to it, then I'll listen to it. Online Marketing Made Easy with Amy Porterfield, same thing, used to listen to it religiously and then fell off for a few years, came back and everything had changed in her business. And I felt like I didn't go away for that long, did I? And then I've kind of dropped off again, and I will catch an episode every now and then, but it's not on my sort of must listen list anymore. Not because it's not worth it, but just because I think you grow and you change and you like to learn from different people. So at the moment, sort of Emily has kind of taken the place of Amy in that the way she talks about things just fits with where I am in my business right now and what I want to be doing. So I don't listen to it as much. Being Soul Confident with Nicola Tonsaga. I really enjoy that podcast. I don't listen to all of the episodes as soon as they come out, but it is one of those ones that I do enjoy listening to. Nicola's voice is beautiful. So if you are interested in soul and how to work with your soul, then that's a great podcast to listen to, and I do enjoy it when I listen to it. Diary of a CEO, I tend to watch that one on YouTube more because I like to look at the body language of the people they're talking to, but I don't watch it very often. I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. Again, another one that I watch because of the body language aspect of it. So I don't listen/watch very often. The Jasmine Star Show, when she puts a title up that grabs me, I will listen to her podcast. And The Expert Edge is one that I've also listened to in recent months. And that's Colin. Can't remember his surname, I'm sorry. I will link all these in the show notes for you, but he talks about selling from stage, but also kind of talking with confidence. So I like listening to his stuff as well. So those are kind of the podcasts I listen to and why I listen to them. I would love to know what your top listens are and where you listen to them. So you can actually reach out to me by using the text me button underneath this episode in a podcast player, or you can come and reach out to me on social. So that is kind of my wrap up of listening to podcasts / why you might want to start one, because people do move on and move through podcasts like I've shown you there with my listens. But when you get somebody who is going to sit there and listen to your podcast, you have great opportunity to build a connection with them. So if you are interested in starting a podcast, I will be opening up my autumn cohorts for applications very soon. So you can head over to donnae.com/masterclass. If you head over there, you'll get access to my on-demand masterclass called Understanding the Power of Podcasting. And underneath that, you will have a button where you can go and fill in the application form, see all the information about the program and stuff. So you can get on that list to fill one of those spaces. I only take 6 people maximum in my cohort. And I am only planning on running one cohort this autumn. So if there is more than 6 people and there's enough for another cohort, I will look to run another one. But I am planning on only doing one cohort. And it is going to happen at the end of September, beginning of October. I haven't got an official date for it yet, I don't think. So if you are interested in joining me for my 8-week Start Your Podcast program, now's the time to get in and secure your spot. Applications are there to be filled in if you want to get ahead of the game, but I will be obviously promoting this a lot more in August and September, so you could snag your spot now and get in ahead of the crowd and secure your spot, or you can just make sure that you're subscribed to this podcast, and then you will be one of the first to know when I start promoting it to the masses, as it were. So that is it for this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I would really really do want to know what your favourite podcasts are, because, you know, I've always got a gap in the diary to listen to something different. So I'd love to know what you listen to. So let me know, and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now. Don't forget to hit those stars and leave a review of the podcast where you listen if you found value in what you heard today. It's a free way you can help the podcast reach more people just like you.